Welcome to the MindView 5 Project Management tutorial. This tutorial assumes that you have an advanced working knowledge of MindView. For this example, we will brainstorm and create a business plan. To begin, we've created the initial mind map brainstorming the various phases and the subtopics or tasks associated with each phase. A numbering schema has been applied to associate the branch order. We've associated pictures, descriptions of tasks, even included supporting documentation. The initial brainstorming process typically takes place on a whiteboard or using sticky notes. In this example, we've used MindMap to create the initial project plan. To convert this into a WBS or work breakdown structure, I simply choose the View tab, go to the View section under Map Views, and choose Top Down. Converting from a mind map into a top-down hierarchical structure allows you to visualize the work breakdown structure both on the deliverables and the work packet elements. Once the WBS has been created and approved, it's time to move forward with the project schedule and plan. The scheduling process takes place in the Task and Timeline info panel, which can be launched from the tab on the right or under the View tab by opening the Task Timeline panel. If I choose to hit Fit All, I can then visualize the entire map, or if we'd like to access and isolate an individual stage for proper scheduling, I left-click the desired section, and I choose to apply branch focus. This then minimizes what's displayed on the screen, focusing my attention on my desired topics. Under the document type, I need to be sure that Project Management is selected. I have 3 options in total, but for this scenario, we're creating a true project management plan. As I move forward with my topics, the initial stage, Phase 1, has been achieved and created as a summary stage, or in this case, a deliverable. I don't schedule the topic information on the deliverable stage, I schedule the individual topics. The deliverable will then summarize the specific subtopic information. So let's begin with defining the opportunity. To the right under Time Information, I see that I have a duration tumble box. I can choose to create my duration in days, minutes, hours, weeks, or even months. For this scenario, I'll leave it at days. If I scroll down below this particular field, you can see that we have the start date and end date information, the task information for priorities and completions, the resources, a quick launch to locate the task information, which we'll cover later in this tutorial, and some quick links for project information and the calendar itself. You first must associate the project information. Project information allows me to visualize the start date or the end date of the project. The start date would lean to me working towards a deadline, whereas if I know the end date of the project, I'd be working in reverse from the deadline. We're going to assume the start date for this project is January 1st, 2013. If I like to associate a project calendar, I can utilize the project calendar link, associate the hours per day, hours per week, and days per month. If I'd like to be specific on my project calendar itself, I can associate a specific day of the week, where I may have limited working hours, or if I'd like to associate some working hours on a non-working day, such as a Saturday or Sunday, I can click on that individual day and associate the according time. I also have the ability to save as a default project calendar. So if I customize to go along with my company holiday schedule, I can save that and use it on my corresponding files by setting it as the default or exporting it and saving it to a desired location and then importing it into the projects as needed. Later in the tutorial, when we cover the individual resource calendars, this will become even more important. For this example, we'll assume the default calendar is fine. I move through my individual items and I start associating my task properties. To define the opportunity, we're going to assume that it's going to be a 2-day task starting on the 1st And MindView will automatically calculate the end date based on the duration. I move down and I choose the priority of the task, 0 being a low priority item, 1000 being a high priority item. The completion level, this would need to be updated as needed, and for now we are at 0 completion. When we get to resources, this is where we start associating the employee or resource that's going to be finalizing the task. And I have several options. I can choose to hand type the information in. I can choose to access my resource pool by clicking on the resource icon. Here I have access to my project resources. The project resources can be populated in several ways. I can import an XML list of resources. I can import them from my Outlook address book, link into my Active Directory, or for the MatchWare Shared Workspace users, I can access them from the Shared Workspace link. For this example, I've listed several resources, and I've even included a material. I've chosen to include their email address, their rate per hour, and the type. In this case, we have work. We also have material. Once my resource pool has been created, I can then access those particular resources from the drop-down list. In this case, I'll associate Adam with the first task. I choose OK, and I see the resource has now been applied to that particular task. If I need to associate an additional resource, I can choose the resource icon, choose a secondary resource from the drop-down list, or I can simply hand type the information by adding a semicolon. In this case, we'll assume that the task is not split and it's one resource. I move on to the next task in question, select my duration. I allow MindView to create and activate the start date. And as you can see, MindView has calculated the duration, but has skipped the weekends. A true working calendar is Monday through Friday. If I need to address this issue, I can always update my project calendar to associate my own unique company schedule. I move forward with the task information. I associate the resource. And if I'd like to visualize this branch information, I can choose to right-click the desired branch, choose Show Branch Data, and turn on any desired data point I'd like, such as the start date, the duration, the work, actual work or remaining work, the corresponding costs associated with the work, the priority, completion, or the resources. In this case, we'll turn on several data points, such as start date. We'll associate the duration of the task. We're going to go ahead and show the cost of that particular task. And we will visualize the resource associated. And as I zoom in on that particular branch, we now see that we have the task information populated directly on the branch. One of the built-in benefits of MindView is to enhance the roll-up feature of a work breakdown structure, where the main deliverable stage is made up by the task properties of its corresponding subtasks. So if I show some information such as the start and end date, and if I show some information such as the cost, the deliverable stage is rolling and summarizing up the corresponding start and end date information from the 1st to the 9th, as well as the cost points for each individual topic. So it's very easy to get an overview of the individual sub-information, as well as a running total on the deliverable stage. I've added to also display the completion level, to show that as I update completion levels for each individual task, the deliverable is also recalculated. As I communicate with the resources and choose to update completion levels of tasks, you can see that I can easily get a running total of the overall stage or deliverable from a completion standpoint. If we choose to display the task information on multiple branches, you can see how MindView is an extremely effective tool to get an overview of each individual task, each individual deliverable stage, as well as an overview of the project itself. where the deliverables are summarizing their subtask information, and the root is summarizing each of the individual deliverables, getting a running total of the start and end time, a running total of the cost of the project, as well as the overall completion of each individual task and deliverable stage. In most project management scenarios, the next stage is to move into the Gantt chart. Where a mind map is great for brainstorming a project plan, and a work breakdown structure is great for visualizing the tasks and deliverable stages, a Gantt chart allows you to take the project to the next scheduling stage. To display your mind map or work breakdown structure as a Gantt chart, simply choose the View tab and choose Gantt. The individual tasks will then be listed as the rows of the Gantt chart, with the corresponding task information listed in the columns. I can go through and change unique properties if I'd like, directly in the outline for the Gantt, or I can work within the visual of the Gantt chart itself, changing completion levels, extending durations, or even optimizing or alternating start dates. As I move forward in my Gantt chart, you can see I have quick links at the top to indent and outdent tasks, add new tasks or subtasks to the groups. I can quickly show completion levels if I'd like to. I have the ability to link and unlink tasks. If I have a specific task that does not require visualization or proper scheduling, I can choose to make that task inactive. I have the opportunity to visualize the task information for each individual task, which allows me to associate things like estimate or accurate start dates, constraint types, which allow me to lock a start date or end date of a task, or make it start as soon or as late as possible. I have the opportunity to change the task type to fixed units, fixed duration, or fixed work, and associate if it's an effort-driven task. Under the Predecessors tab, I have the ability to access the most popular predecessor types. Or here I can choose a simple finish to start, finish to finish, start to finish, or start to start, the four main predecessor types supported in Microsoft Project. You can also associate any lag time, which would be a delay between tasks. Under the Resources tab, we have the same information we saw prior. The individual drop-down with my associated resources, or the link to project resources, which would allow me to add or remove specific resources. I also have the ability to create predecessor relationships in a drag-and-drop method. By left-clicking on a prior task, I can drag a line and point it at the next task in question, creating a basic finish to start predecessor. This allows me to visualize my task information and associate any according predecessors. Predecessors are important where if a duration of a task takes longer than expected, the end date of the project will be adjusted accordingly. Some other helpful information is to increase or decrease the text size used in the outline view. I can also choose under the Design tab to show things like the task name and resource name. I can affect the look and feel of the Gantt chart itself, or customize the individual color bars in the same manner as I did in the mind map views by selecting my unique groups, going under the Format tab, and changing the fill color to my desired color. Where viewing a Gantt chart may be complex for some viewers to understand, displaying your project plan as a timeline simplifies this process. As long as I've associated my dates and times, I can simply go under View and choose Timeline. You can now see the project information displayed in the Timeline view. The Timeline view has its own individual Timeline Tools tab, which allows me to do things like insert additional events, add multimedia content, expand or compress the timeline, show duration bars if I choose to, show time breaks to decrease gaps, show the numbering scheme, and turn on the timeline outline. The timeline outline also allows me to associate the date information and access my corresponding branch attachments. Since this is just another working view in MindView, I can still right-click on a branch, and I can show certain branch data information, such as the start time and end time, the duration, completion, or cost. So I get the same benefits as the other various views, but I simplify the view for my users and allow them to navigate through the timeline to see the corresponding task information. Now that we've seen the benefits of looking at the mind map views, the Gantt chart, and the timeline, we'd like to talk about task distribution and exporting your project. I've associated the Define the Opportunity task with the resource Adam, and under the project resource information, I've included Adam's email address. This means that I can then use the Microsoft Outlook integration and distribute this as a proper Outlook task. All of the tasks assigned to Adam will go to Adam, and all the tasks assigned to the additional resources will go specifically to their Outlook task list. I choose the File button. I choose Export to Microsoft Outlook, and I choose to export as new tasks. And as you can see from the description, you will export the MindView document as a set of new tasks. I left-click the object. I would then choose to distribute tasks to resources via email and simply choose OK. The individual assigned resources will then receive their Outlook task in their task list. They can feel free to update completion levels in their own unique Outlook task list. And as a MindView document owner, I simply go back to the File button. This time I choose Import Microsoft Outlook, and I choose to synchronize the document, which will update the task status from Outlook and update the MindView file itself. If I need to add any additional tasks to the mind map at a later time and assign additional resource information, I can always choose the File button, choose Export again, and this time I would choose to synchronize under the Export menu, which would export and update the tasks from MindView to the individual resources Outlook task lists. We will now export this MindView document to the various Microsoft Office applications, and we'll begin by exporting to Microsoft Word to create a project plan in linear format. The radial branch order will be converted into the section order of the Word document, and the branch data will be supplied on the individual sections of the Word document. I choose the File button, Export, Microsoft Word, and in this case I'm going to choose the Advanced Word Export. I'll select a heading style that I'd like to use, go under the General tab, and include the various elements I'd like to capture: an image of the mind map, table of contents, text notes, pictures, and information. If I would like to not include something, I simply uncheck it. And if I'd like to include additional elements, I can choose to add that information. I simply choose Export, and I now see the converted document into Microsoft Word with the heading and the image, the corresponding table of contents, and as I navigate through the document, I see the attached branch information, such as the task information, images, text note information, even any links that we've associated and attached on the branches. To view this information as a PowerPoint presentation, the branch order will be converted into the slide order of the slideshow. Choose the File button, Export, Microsoft PowerPoint, and choose the Advanced PowerPoint Export. Choose a heading style I'd like to use. Under the General tab, select the elements I'd like to capture, uncheck the elements I'd like to not include, and I simply choose Export. MindView has now converted my mind map into a unique PowerPoint presentation, each branch having its own individual slide, and the attached branch information being captured on that particular slide. For project managers that need to export to Microsoft Project at any stage of your project plan, I can choose the File button, I can choose Export, I can choose Microsoft Project, and export the file as an MS Project file. As you can see, MindView has now converted the MindView mind map into a Microsoft Project Gantt chart. The branches have been carried over, descriptions of tasks or constraints have been carried over as well. Cost information has also been included inside of the Gantt chart as well as the resources. And I have my Gantt chart created for me. It's a standard feature that all exports from MindView are also imports. And if I choose to make any changes to my exported Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Outlook, or project files, I can always choose to import, which would allow me to update the mind map with any changes that I've made to these exported document types. An added feature inside of MindView are the new enhanced project reports. Where a Gantt chart or a timeline or a mind map may prove a bit too detailed for a high-level manager or executive, the project reports allow you to get a dashboard overview built in HTML format. I simply choose the File button, Export, and Project Reports. The project reports are created in website format, with the navigation across the left. The executive report gives me a snapshot of my team, a summary of my resources, as well as a snapshot of my working calendar and any exception days. An overview of high-level task status, with the stage or the deliverable and the corresponding tasks, and a legend stating if those tasks are unstarted, completed, or in progress. By navigating on the left menu, I can choose to see a consolidated task list with all stages and corresponding task information, drill down on the different levels of task, or even take a look at our resource allocation report, which lets you know what tasks have been assigned to which resource. The workload report gives you a snapshot of your scheduling practices to see if you're over-allocating specific employees. And then we have an accountability report, which allows me to see if employees are consistently overdue on tasks, if it's due to overloading, or if they're just not meeting requirements or deadlines. As you can see, MindView is an extremely effective tool for brainstorming your plan, creating a work breakdown structure, creating a polished schedule in a Gantt chart, and exporting that project plan to several Microsoft Office formats, including Microsoft Project.